Assignment 04C, the Precipitation Summary, looks at the monthly rainfall and snowfall for Flagstaff, Arizona, based on some data from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And I give you a table of that data. We're going to put that into some arrays, an array for the month, an array for the rain, an array for the snow, that are going to be parallel arrays. And so our assignment is to then create an iOS app that the user clicks the button Show Stats, and it will show the stats for each of those months, as well as the annual precipitation with 13 inches of snow equaling 1 inch of rain, or 1 inch of precipitation. And then what was the driest month and what was the wettest month. So we use a loop to go through our arrays and develop this table, as well as determine what's the driest month and the wettest month. I suggest you pause the video here, try this on your own, and if you struggle, come back and watch my solution. I'm going to show you both the storyboard and the SwiftUI solution. Here's the storyboard solution to the Precipitation Summary project, and I'm just going to do this as portrait orientation. If we look at our main storyboard, I have a label up here for the title. We're looking at the annual precipitation. Then I have a text view that's going to be for our output. Made it fairly large that we can basically have a bunch of lines of text here. I have a button for Show Stats and a button for Clear Stats. Let me bring up the code. I'm going to hide my panels left and right. So I created an outlet for the output label. That's going to be this white box here. And then in my data, I have some arrays that I created that are hard-coded in. Later we'll look at how to bring this in from maybe a text file or reading from a database or maybe even a web service. But for now, we're just going to hard-code this in. So I have a variable for rainfall, a variable for snowfall, and there are 12 values in each of these, so one for each of the months. And then a variable for months, which is just a string of the month that we'll use in our code. Then I created a function for the Show Stats button and the Clear Stats. So the Clear Stats is simply setting the label text back to clear the button below to show the stats. When I click the Show Stats, we're going to create a variable called total precipitation. It's a double equals 0. I want to find the driest month and the wettest month, so I'm going to set a default value of January for both of those. And for the driest month, I'm going to say 300 inches. We know we have months less than that. And for the wettest month, I'm going to set it to 0. As we go through our loop, we're going to look at each month. And if it's drier, we're going to replace the month name and the driest precipitation. As we go through the loop, we're also going to check to see if it's wetter than 0 or the current month that's been replaced. So it's going to compare month by month by month through the 12 months, and we'll end up with the driest and the wettest. Our output label I'm going to set to nothing. Here's my loop. We're going to let snowfall, or let snow to rain equals the snowfall divided by 13.0. So 13 inches of snow is equal to 1 inch of rain. We want to find our total precipitation. The month precipitation then is the rainfall plus the snow to rain. And our total precipitation, which is going to be for the annual value, is going to be incremented by that month precipitation. Here's where we're checking to see if the current month is wetter than the wettest month we have on record at this point. So we're going to start comparing January to January. We're going to get the wettest month and the driest month. And we'll keep comparing February, March, and so forth. Then I'm going to create a variable called precip display. And I want to take the month precipitation and set it to 1 decimal. Now I could have done that down here in the output label. Sometimes I think it's just cleaner to do it ahead of time and then just add it into the output labels. So the text of my output label is going to be incremented by the interpolated value of the months array, and then that precip display that we just calculated, which is the month precipitation, and then to 1 decimal place, and then the word inches, and I do a new line character. So through those 12 months of our loop, we're going to get each one on a new line. Total precipitation display doing the same thing, 1 decimal. Output label equals annual precipitation. I'm going to get the value of that total precip display, and then we're going to increment to that our driest month and our wettest month displayed as the name of the month and what was the precipitation to 1 decimal place. Now I designed this for the iPhone, so I want to run this on. So I designed for the iPhone SE, so an older phone. I want to test this on the iPhone 14 Pro. Let's change our display here. We'll do the iPhone 14 Plus. Now it's kind of up here close to the top. I'm going to just move things down a little bit here. And let's change this to the 14 Plus. So they are the same together. And now let's test. So there it is on the emulator. I'm going to show the stats. We get each month and the total precipitation, our annual precipitation, and then the driest month and the wettest month. If I click clear stats, clears that, show stats, brings it back. This is an example of using a loop to go through some array data and making a display using string concatenation. Now let's take a look at using a SwiftUI project to solve the precipitation summary problem. Again, I'm designing only for portrait on both iPhone and iPad. We'll take a look at the content view here for our storyboard. I'm just going to hide the panel on the left-hand side. And here's our SwiftUI interface. So we're importing SwiftUI. In the structure of the view, I've got a state variable here for the output. That's going to be what's displayed here in the white text view. We're going to start with click the button to show the stats, and you see that displayed there. Then I created my hard-coded data for the rainfall, snowfall, and months that we saw in the storyboard version. Again, later we'll look at how to bring this in from a text file or maybe a database or a web service. But we have basically 12 values, each for the rainfall, the snowfall, and the months. And then I'm going to create a Z stack here because I want to give this a nice blue background. So a Z stack, we've seen vertical stacks, we've seen horizontal stacks. A Z stack or Z stack allows us to put items on top of one another. So in the Z stack, I'm just going to create a color object that's going to fill that background with this blue of 0.5 red, 0.75 green, and 1.0 blue. I'm going to ignore the safe area, and that safe area then allows that blue to go all the way up to the top and the bottom. Then I'm going to create the V stack on top of that. So think of the V stack as sitting on top of our color object. And here we're going to create a text view of Flagstaff, Arizona, a new line character, Precipitation Summary, setting the font, the multi-line to center, and bold. Our text view for the output is going to take the value of that output variable and display that. So we see the click the button to show the stats. I'm going to set the line limit to 25. I'm going to do a couple additional lines here in the Swift that I didn't do in the storyboard, just because I'd like to see what was the annual rainfall and the annual snowfall as well, rather than just the annual precipitation. So that gives me 25 lines in that text view. I can set some padding, make it leading so it's over on the left-hand side. I'm setting a frame rate to 350 and 500. Now again, I'm designing here for the iPhone 14 Pro, and then we're setting a background view, and that's going to be white. Then I have an H stack, which contains my two buttons. One button for show stats, one button for clear stats. The clear stats button, just simply the code is output equals clear. Click the button below to show the stats. Same as we're starting with. The code for the show stats is going to call a function called show stats that will return a string that's going to go into output. And then that will update our text. Do a padding, background view, which is gray, foreground color is black. Set the font to .title3, and I gave a little corner radius. I did that on both of those. Here then is our method for showing the stats. So I want some variables for total precipitation, driest month, driest precip, wettest precip that we saw earlier. I added in two variables here, one for the rain total and the snow total. I want to know what the total rain is for the year and the total snow for the year. I didn't do that in the storyboard version. You could go back and do that in the storyboard. I also want to have a little header here that explains how I'm going to display this data. So it's going to be the total precip, and then in this version I'm adding in the total inches rain and total inches snow month for month, and then a new line character and telling them that 13 inches of snow equals 1 inch of rain, and then a blank line. So I have two new line characters. Then our loop that we saw earlier of going through and figuring out the wettest and the driest month, and also creating our output month by month for the name of the month and the total precipitation, as well as the rainfall and the snowfall for that month. And then also getting totals for the year with total precip, rain total, and snow total. So that's going to display the 12 months. After we're done with that, I then want to display the annual precipitation. As I did in the storyboard, actually I copied some code from the storyboard to make it easy and quick, is I set a string format for 1 decimal for that total precipitation display. Then I also show the annual rain and the annual snowfall, and then what the driest and wettest month was. And we return then my output, which is the variable I'm creating here, assembling back to the output variable. And that will update our display. Let's just test it here in the preview display of our interface. So we'll click Show Stats, and then we're getting the display total precip, inches and rain, 13 inches equals snow, so giving some information to the user how we're displaying this. And then we have each of the months. So after the total precipitation, we're showing the amount of rain and the amount of snow. We're getting the annual precipitation, annual rain, and annual snow, and then the driest month and the wettest month. And we can clear the stats or show them again. That's our SwiftUI solution. If you just jumped into this video, you can see all the videos from the iOS app development cohort playlist by clicking on the image in the lower right. And if you'd like to be alerted to future videos that I create, you can click my picture up in the top right and subscribe to the channel.